Hello everyone. Today's lesson we are going to talk about clothing rendering basics. The lesson includes rendering window introduction and rendering parameters. And the main points of the lesson are about photo properties, video properties, and light properties. The basic rendering function to be explained today requires us to open a project file that has completed the creation of the clothing model. The role of our offline rendering is to render the produced 3D clothing into a more realistic, more delicate, and advanced clothing picture. In the first part, we will explain the introduction of the rendering window. To find the offline rendering tool, we must first see the menu bar in the upper left corner, including Home, Asset, Tool, Measure, Setting. What we need is under the Tool column. Now the layout is crowded, so we'd better right-click on the top bar and turn off the 2D window. Let's take a look at the first menu tool, Sync. Click and wait for a while. We can get the preliminary processed models and clothes in the right window. The overall lighting looks softer and more realistic, right? We can first see several small buttons at the bottom of the entire rendering bar. This button allows models and clothing to be displayed one-to-one in the size you set. And the buttons on the left of it can be manually zoomed in and out, to display the size you think is appropriate. Looking further to the left, there is a lock view function that allows your rendering window to not change due to the movement of the 3D model. We can also look at the results of unchecked. That is, the columns on both sides will change in real time. When you feel that the rendering is almost done, in addition to choosing to end process, you can also right-click and directly choose to save to a file or copy. And after copying, you can paste it into other dialog boxes or documents. After the pause, we can find that adjusting the 3D model on the left will not affect the rendering results. Let's introduce our region render function, which can save time when we only want to observe parts in rendering. You need to turn on Sync first, and then click Region Render to select the part that needs to be partially rendered. And you can also adjust the frame selection range as needed. The third button is the final render. As we mentioned before, the sync render will follow the 3D model to change the perspective. While, in final render mode, adjusting the left model will not affect the rendering angle. This function takes longer to render. You can estimate how much time is left from the progress bar in the upper right corner. And the resulting picture will be more realistic and beautiful than other rendering modes. But you can also manually choose to pause when the rendering level reaches your expectations, and the picture will be automatically saved. The fourth function is multi-image render. The small buttons on the top row allow you to add, delete, and reset rendering perspectives. If you need to add to the rendering angle, adjust the model to a good angle in the 3D window. And then click the plus will add a picture. These properties on the right are the basic structure and environment parameters. There is also a rotate animation function above, which allows us to see the 3D window in wraparound. If you want to adjust it, change it in the 3D window and click this button again. In the lower right corner, you can choose to save the picture or animation to the local or to the cloud. In the next part, we will learn to adjust the rendering parameters. Normally, when we click Render Image Property, the property bar on the right will pop up. If not, we can open it from the storage bar on the right. The first attribute is to set the size of the rendered image. The default value contains some common sizes. You can also use direction to assist in adjusting, which has two types, vertical and horizontal. If the size does not fit after adjustment, you can manually adjust it. This unit refers to the unit of measurement of the image size. If you want a size other than the preset, you can modify it manually. Note that when maintain ratio is turned on, modifying a single value will cause another value to be changed in conjunction. Let's look at the background. You may be confused why the color display here is white. However, our background is black now, which is the same as the software. The reason is we turn on transparency. If it is turned off, the color here will be displayed on the canvas, and we can also adjust the color settings. The texture can be selected locally on our computer. Here is a demonstration for you. If it is not suitable, we can also delete it. Real model photo blending is automatically enabled after we turn on the real-life rendering function. We will introduce it to you in more advanced courses. Save module allows you to customize the format, name and address of the rendered finished product. Further down, it involves more professional rendering parameters. For example, we can decide whether to use the computer's CPU or GPU for rendering. Generally speaking, the rendering time of the CPU is longer but the effect is better, and when the CPU is used for rendering, the computer is prone to stuttering when doing other operations. We can also customize the proportion of computer performance occupied by rendering. The larger the value, the faster the calculation. More detailed adjustments involve the noise threshold and the max render time, which can be selected or typed in specific values according to your specific needs. There are also 4 options for the quality level of the rendered image. Here is a small tip. If you need to render faster sometimes, you can choose the mode of light cache to accelerate, but the effect will not be as good as brute force. Bounce is also a parameter that can be modified. Generally speaking, the larger the value, the finer the effect of the light will be. The improve reflection below is the default choice, which can ensure the true luster of the fabric. Turn on denoise can assist the noise threshold above to further reduce the small black spots on the surface of the clothing in the rendering. Next, let's introduce our light property. The top buttons allow you to save or turn on your own preset lighting. There are also preset lights in the light library, including various contrasts, angles, distance, as well as the virtual sunlight in different seasons. First, let's take a look at the effect of medium contrast. After this ground shadow is turned on, the shadow of the model under the light will appear in our rendering window. Next, there is an introduction to the dome light. In order to make it more obvious for everyone to see, I switched to the default lighting mode. At this time, there is only one dome light in the whole scene. It can be seen that if you choose not to enable the top light here, the entire model and clothes will be dark. But if you turn it off in other light modes, the impact may be that there is no light at the top, and the lights in other places still exist, and the distribution of overall light will change. So if the entire rendering environment has no other lights, generally the top light must be turned on. Shadow refers to whether the surface of the clothing displays the shadow caused by the light. In order to be more realistic, this is also checked by default. Effect specular means whether to make the clothing reflect the light. Ticking it will make the fabric more textured. I can show you how lock camera works. If you turn it on, then when you adjust the angle of the model, the light will keep the position in the world coordinates. I can turn it off for you to compare. At this time, the light will follow rotating with the rotation of the model, and remains unchanged relative to the garment. In addition to lighting presets, we have also prepared a complete set of lighting libraries for you, which is the Environment Map library. The different presets we choose will only be displayed in the render window. After choosing a suitable environment map, you can adjust the overall tone of the environment. The intensity and angle of the light layout can also be adjusted. When visibility in render is turned on, we can see our environment map in the rendering window, which generally does not need to be displayed. Because if we turn on this after building other lights, some shadows from the lights themselves will be rendered too. After the overall environment has been set, sometimes in order to achieve a richer personalized display, we will use the Add Light function, including area light, sphere light, direction light, spot light, IES light. Click to add it to the default position, and the effect will be superimposed layer by layer. To delete, you can click and select Delete on the keyboard. Different light sources also have corresponding parameters that can be adjusted in the property bar on the right. The last IES light is a light that simulates a natural point of light effect in the real world. There is also a small tip: if you build too many lights, it will increase the rendering time. Okay, let's show you the final rendering effect. The highlights of this lesson are the following two. Number 1. When you use partial rendering, you need to turn on sync render first. Number 2. With the help of preset lights, we can greatly save our design time, but placing too many lights will increase the rendering time. This lesson is over. Welcome to like and share the video, participate in the comment area to leave a message, and we will reply to the key questions in a timely manner. See you in the next video.